Hey, what is up, Headhunters and Executive Recruiters? This is David Stephen Patterson, also known as DSP, coming at you live with Headhunters Live with my co-hosts, the best-looking man in the biz, Chris Wessel. Hello, Chris. As well as the boss, the godfather, the big man, the big stinky cheese, Neil Lebovitz. What's up, Neil? What's up, Chris?
I look forward to my intros every single week, not knowing what I'm going to get, but I'll take this one. Sing harmony.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And we have a great show today, guys. By the way, I don't think I'm actually live in our Facebook or my Facebook group. Neil, are you live in yours?
Yeah, I'm live.
All right. Well, mine is not live, so we have to pop the video in there later. So, all right. Well, anyway, I'm live everywhere else. I'm not going to worry about it. We have a fantastic show today. We have the brand spankin new president of NPA Worldwide, Kerry Crockett. She ran a successful coup. Just kidding, not really a real coup, but Dave Nurse, who is the old president, he retired. We had him on the show last year, by the way, and now Kerry is taking the helm, and we're really excited to talk to her. It's going to be a really good show, especially for those folks who want to get involved in building more, right? Split business. But before we dive in,
a second and just redo the intro and broadcast your group. I mean, everyone could stand by on mine who's watching it. We'll rebroadcast in a second. I mean, hate to lose that audience that's looking forward to it.
We'll restream it. To be candid, I'd have to. I don't know what the settings were on when we set up the call, and so I'd have to actually reset the entire thing. So let's just keep going. Let's keep going. I'll just restream into the group later. So, all right. So guys, if anybody's watching this live, please comment live down below. We want to know who's watching. If anybody is watching the replay, please comment replay. We'll also be able to answer questions. So just comment your question, and we'll make sure Kerry answer, or one of us will answer it for you. And before we dive into Kerry's story and what NPA is doing this coming year, let's first talk about our sponsor. So my company, the Digital Headhunter, is a sales and marketing consulting company that helps recruiters deploy sales and marketing systems. In essence, we help you get more clients faster. So we do a complete build of your sales and marketing system. We do it in about 30 days, done for you. You don't have to bang your head against the wall trying to figure out the tech stack and everything else. We handle the entire thing for you in 30 days. We also are running a 25% year-end special, which actually ends tomorrow. We've got like 2 spots left. If anybody's interested in that, go to realdsp.com/build. If you can't find a slot to talk to me by tomorrow, Jaja, if you could put my email in the comments on all of our streams, people just email me directly and we can figure out a time. All right. Now, our other sponsor is Back Office Staffing Solutions. This is Neil's baby, his labor of love. So if anybody here is interested in adding recurring revenue to their business, you're tired of the feast and the famine, up one month and down the other. You know how the old game is in recruiting. But if you want to get into contracting, staff augmentation, fractional consulting, whatever you want to call it, but basically you want to smooth out your revenue, better serve your clients, but you don't want to get involved with the headaches and the hassle and the big gnarly teeth of all the workers' comp and the agreements and the insurance and the big one of funding payroll. Funding payroll is a big one. Neil handles the entire thing and does it all within a branded app that your clients and candidates see that makes you look a lot bigger than you really are. So if anybody's interested in getting started, go to backofficenow.com. And you can also check out his free training on what he calls the gross margin method. Go to backofficenow.com/GMM. That's the only back office provider I recommend. It's a great one. I'm not just saying that because Neil's my friend. It's actually legit the best one out there. So, yeah, that's about it. Neil, anything you want to add?
No, that was wonderful. Yeah. It's time to do it for 2025. I'll say I've seen a lot of posts of people looking to get into contract staffing, and I'll have a webinar coming out soon that'll explain all the math behind why you need to do it, but get into it for sure.
The gross margin method stuff is helpful too, because I know I had my last business for 10 years, did contract staffing. And I remember when I first started doing it, I had no idea how to price it correctly. I had no idea how to make sure that I was actually making money on it, other than some arbitrary markup. And then also how to not go about just doing like a markup approach and instead a bill rate, which is a huge deal, in terms of how you sell it. So anyway,
and it's a webinar too. So, you can go at it your own pace and has a handout and all that fun stuff.
Excellent. All right. And then one last thing, and I'll make this very, very quick because I want to get to Kerry. Neil and I have started a recruiters only platform called The Syndicate. It's where elite recruiters are going to play. It's just been described as like Narnia for recruiters. Go into the wardrobe and just explore. We have free training, agreements, contracts, white hot memes, conversations. And in fact, Neil and I have a training on marketing tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's our part number 2 of our training called Marketing Made Easy, completely free. We're going to broadcast it into our Facebook groups, but we're also the replays on that, as well as the replays on all of our other training, can be found in the Syndicate. So go to thesyndicate.chat, join completely free, and be amazed. All right. With that said, let's talk to Kerry. Kerry. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. All right, Kerry. So how'd you like all those long ass promos?
Quite a few, but always so important, right? They're necessary.
Yeah. But yeah, they are. Well, look, it's a fact. We have to do it. But at the end of the day, obviously great services. Obviously we're biased, but what are you going to do? But Kerry, let's chat with you. We're excited. So you are the brand spanking new president of NPA Worldwide, the leader of the successful coup against Dave Nurse, who I hear is now in hiding.
He's in exile, I believe. Yeah.
I hear Putin he's living with Edward Snowden in Moscow.
On all the islands. Yeah.
Just kidding. Dave retired. But Kerry, before we begin, let's tell us just a bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, thank you. Well, appreciate the opportunity first to be on with you guys. I think this is going to be some fun time spent with you for sure. I can see that already. My background is a little bit convoluted. I'm sort of my second career. I started off as an occupational therapist, actually, and worked in that and in management for about almost 15 years there. And then moved over into the nonprofit association world about 20 years ago. And so since that time, I've been leading associations, various sectors. Most have been healthcare. One has been sort of insurance. And now I'm with NPA in terms of recruiting firms. So it's been a wonderful 20 years. I have really enjoyed the missions of the associations that I have worked with and led, and really enjoy the work that they do. So, and thrilled to be with NPA.
Excellent. Well, look, I've had some experience with NPA. NPA is so I actually spoke at your conference back in May last year with my Make Cold Calling Great Again presentation, which is one of my favorites. And it was a great time. And I got to tell you, of all the split networks I've been involved with, either been involved in somehow, either in my past as a recruiter or now as a trainer, I could say that by far my experience with NPA has been far surpassed. NPA. It's a fantastic organization. So
that's great to hear.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And as a member too, I've been doing this. I've been a part of it since not long after we had Dave on the show, a little over a year ago, was what kind of brought my attention to it. So I reached out to him right afterwards and got involved. And not long after that was one of our New York meetings, just like we just had a couple weeks ago, where I saw Kerry. And because one thing is kind of cool about NPA, and we'll get into all this, but I mean, there's the opportunity for splits. There's the opportunity for revenue share. That's like the core of it. But it's also it's a collective, if you will. It's almost I say brotherhood, but I mean it's
a community.
But it's community, right? Because you've got a lot of kindred spirits, because it's mostly into like solo recruiters or fairly small firms, and like the differences. I mean, we have these regional get-togethers all over there's a national conference in Philly, which I'll absolutely be at in March. And then, but there's like regional get-togethers, which could be like, some sessions and like dinner or like golfing, or like it is like it's a community, which is nice because this is the type of business where you can talk to people all day long, but it's also like a lonely business, right?
Exactly.
Like you're doing this slaving away in your cave and you're talking to people all day, but you don't have coworkers, you don't have people that turn up, you get up, hang up the phone, and you're like, can you believe this?
That's exactly right. That is, that's exactly what it is. It's people that are coming together to help each other out, and it goes way beyond just doing the splits, right? And doing that day-to-day business that you're doing. There are deep friendships that have been formed. And people will travel across the world to see each other and to visit each other. And usually it's outside of business. I mean, sometimes they certainly can tag in business with that, but there are deep friendships that have been formed across the world. And it's so great when you see the people together and you hear the stories that they tell. And beyond just the regional ones that we have and the global conference that we have in the US, we also do 3 other conferences worldwide too. So I think there's lots of opportunities for people to be face to face and to continue those friendships that they develop. But it's such an amazing
looking just for that sort of networking, and people that look at that, wow, I got to go to a conference this year. I will say also, I used to be a regular speaker at NPA, and it was just definitely one of the best organized. And it wasn't, you wouldn't even know it was a split, quote unquote, organization. It was just great.
It's like an association of recruiters.
Association of recruiters, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the buddies. I mean, I remember when I'm not a member technically of NPA, but I did speak there last May, and I remember my last day there. I was ended up drinking with I think 9 or 10 recruiters I met there. With some really nice whiskey that somebody brought in and kind of snuck it. Yeah, it's just nice.
Sounds unlikely.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about these conferences and I mean other recruiters, because Chris, as you said, you're on an island a lot of times if you're solo, if it's just you working out of an office, and even if you work like in a shared space, people who aren't recruiters don't get the business. I mean, it's and there's the kind of the unique stresses, and being able to go and hang out with some buddies, have some shots, have some drinks, and tell war stories, and and brag about like billings or placements or whatever it happens to be, right? I mean, brag about the hardest place you made that year.
Commiserate.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun. But the other piece, and I want to dive into this, is just on the splits itself, because in my estimation, at least the way I look at it, is I know a lot of recruiters don't want to do splits because they don't want to have to split the fee. But at the end of the day, if you have a contract with a company, let's say you're an IT recruiter and they have an accounting position open, well, wouldn't it really better serve the client to help them with that too? Granted, you're not an accounting recruiter, but if you have a trusted accounting recruiter that you partner with, and then they give you the IT roles with their clients because they already have a contract, right? Both are going to make more money. Both of you serve your clients better. And what better way to recession-proof your business than to really rely on splits to fill those positions that you would not have worked otherwise?
Exactly. And that is the whole point of NPA in the network. I mean, we get that you're giving, in a sense, there's 2 ways of looking at it. You can say, well, I'm giving away half of my money. The other piece of that is I'm actually getting half of money that I never would have got had I not been in part of this network. And you're right. I mean, there are so many different opportunities there to make some splits, and whether they're within your country, whether they're cross-border, I mean, the opportunities are there. And it's really about perspective and how you look at it. And I'm a half glass full kind of girl.
I had somebody reach out to me in the network I talked to yesterday who's in Spain, and it was basically like, we have a client here that acquired a company in New York City, and we want to talk to you and a couple other recruiters in that like general area, just to get a sense of like, we might want to need some boots on the ground there because this is like out of our wheelhouse. So like just these conversations pop up. And I was also, to illustrate kind of what Dave was saying too, I was having a conversation a couple of days ago with a healthcare focused recruiter in NPA who's not too far down the road from me, maybe like an hour and a half away. Mm-hmm. And so he's in the same kind of region and geography as me. Completely healthcare recruiting for the last like 18 years. I don't touch healthcare recruiting because it's just like an entirely different animal and I don't know much about it. I don't want to mess with it. But I was explaining to him on like this call where we get to know each other because he's a new member. And I was like, listen, I get all sorts of like HR managers, other types of leaders. They move around different companies. I get some that end up at a company and they're like, hey, Chris, I could get you a contract to hire for us. Or like, hey, we need like a director of nursing or something. And I'm like, oh, thank you, but no. And I was telling him, like, listen, part of my strategy in going into the year is I'm going to take a hard look at all those people I'm already connected to and in some cases hired for that are maybe now at a healthcare company. And I could say, hey, listen, I got a partner I can bring on this who could, because that's the other thing. It's nice. Like somebody, a situation like that, a lot of times, as Kerry knows, but not everybody here knows, like you grab that partner and you do the call together, right? Like, so if I got a healthcare opportunity, I would call that recruiter and I would say, I would tell the client, like, hey, myself and my colleague are going to join for this discovery call. The two of us would do it. I'd ask my questions. He'd ask his questions. And then as soon as we get off that call, we got a contract in place, he could be off and running. I don't even need to parrot everything back to him. And as far as the client's concerned, as part of your team, they don't care really. You know, I mean, that's just like one way that stuff comes together.
Want the job filled. Yeah.
Yeah. They just want the job filled. And like, you know, yeah, you're not giving up anything really, because you wouldn't have had that. And plus, like, don't forget, if you're solo or a small, like, this is work. This is time spent. So like, if you want that full fee, you have to put in the full work. Right. So, you know, relative to what you would earn, like relative to the time you spend on it, like there are some people in the network, like we had Ed on, and you know very well, Ed's billings, and Ed was on a couple of weeks ago. And like Ed's got a great system where he doesn't recruit at all. He just does business development. He makes a lot of people in the network happy. He bills $1.5 million a year with a lot of people's help. I mean, it's just there, you know, and yes, also sometimes I think people come in like looking for opportunities. That's the other angle. You could be a recruiter who has, you know, your pipeline's been drying up, or like the niche that was working for you, you're not really sure how to pivot or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Like that comes up in groups a lot. I've been hiring in this space, but it's kind of dried up. I'm not sure what else I should try. You go in NPA, you call some other recruiters, get some relationships going. They'll give you a shot at working on one of their jobs. And I've filled some really obscure, weird stuff, right? That client might not give you that job order of something in, like, they say you want to pivot into like IT and you were doing healthcare before. Go in NPA, talk to a bunch of people who do IT, help them with their recs, get some submittals, get some interviews, get a couple of hires under your belt. Now you can go to your own customers even and your prospects and say, hey, yeah, I do have experience hiring in that. So like, there's just, anyway, I'll stop. But there's a lot of ways you can play this that can be really beneficial.
Yeah, and I think your point about, you know, how you've got these jobs and you've got the candidates, you know, but you're doing all of that work yourself if you're not in a network. I mean, the network really accelerates the opportunity for you to produce that business and to get that revenue, because you don't have to do the other half of that work. You've already got somebody coming to you with a job, for example, and you've got candidates or vice versa. I mean, half of that work is done, and so you can place that person so much quicker and get that revenue so much quicker than you might have been doing on your own.
Now, there are ways to do this right and ways to do this wrong. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, go for it. I want to make a point on the marketing side, but yeah, go for it.
Right. I was going to say, as there are ways to, you know, it's not just you just pop in, you just start making splits. Like there's ways to go about this that lead to success, and there are ways that lead to nothing. Right. Kerry, do you want to comment on like what works, what doesn't work?
Yeah, because I think that's sometimes a misconception that people might, when they first have conversations with the folks on our sales team, they have that misconception that this is going to fix my business. You know, and some people come in and they're already a little bit on the rocks and they think this is going to fix my business. I'm going to be rolling in the cash in no time at all. That's not how it works. We are a truly, very strongly too, I would say, relationship-based organization. And what that means is, you know, you have to build those trusting relationships. And sometimes that takes time. We have staff, our engagement team, that are going to help you to make those connections quicker and move you along and really accelerate that process for you. But you do have to put in the work and the effort and the time and the energy it takes to make those connections, build those trusting relationships so that people want to work with you. You get one split under your belt, and then sometimes you're off and running because you've already got a trading partner that you trust, they trust you, and it's much quicker and much easier in that way. And then, of course, if you join the calls that we have practice group calls that are industry specific. You have the opportunity there to very quickly connect with 20, 25 sometimes at a time, folks that might be in your industry, in your sector, and that's very quickly can connect you with somebody who's got a great candidate or a great job, et cetera. So it does take energy and effort. It's not just you walk in and suddenly you're making splits and the revenue is pouring in, and there's a ramp up time, but we've got a lot of tools and resources and staff team that are dedicated to making sure that you're very successful And then they follow up with you after that first split to ensure that you're on your way to the second split. So it's not just turning you to the wolves after the first one and you're on your own. They are there full on to make sure that you know how to use our platforms, how to use the products and services that we have. We support you in marketing efforts as well. So just a ton of resources that we have to help to make you as successful as possible, as quickly as possible.
Now, with that said, I want to dive a bit more into maybe some meat in terms of, maybe how to best approach splits and whether you're part of a network or not, right? Because let's be real, some people may not want to join a network; they just want to work with their current split partners. But one thing I will say, though, from a marketing perspective, and this is something I deal with on almost daily basis with clients who work with our company, and everybody finds the best candidates, great, right? Everybody finds them the fastest, great. I mean, we all say the same things, right? So, like, how do you differentiate yourself from all the other competitors out there? And it's really hard for a lot of recruiters to figure out like what really truly differentiates them. Because again, if you find the best candidates, fantastic. Everybody says the exact same crap. So, how do you differentiate? And so, one of the ways that you can, I think, is granted, if you're a solo recruiter, you're not a part of a big company, but you can say that I'm part of a global network of over 500 offices worldwide, and we can not only can we recruit in this, let's say, IT area or whatever you happen to specialize in, but also accounting, also this, also that. And so for some clients who may feel a little bit apprehensive about going with a solo operator because it seems a little more risky dealing with a shop that may not have as much breadth, being able to I don't latch on, but be able to highlight that you're part of this big global network, I think, is a great way to differentiate as well. And
it's huge. And what's interesting about that is that we actually have many folks in our network, and a lot of those are actually overseas. Asia is sort of known for some of this as well. They're part of our network, but they don't necessarily do splits. But they are part of the network so that they can tell their clients they're part of a global community, part of a global network. And that carries a lot of weight in different regions around the world. And so that's also a true benefit for folks. And if that's why they want to join, obviously that's totally fine. We want them to be active in the network, of course. But the fact that you're able to say, I've got 500 partners behind me, and so that expands my staff in a sense. I mean, that's a huge plus and a huge benefit if you're talking with your clients, for sure.
For sure.
Kerry,
Yeah, definitely.
can I ask you, since you're basically a microcosm of the recruiting space, people are really interested in, and I'm asked a lot about trends, in terms of sectors, in terms of what's happened in the previous quarters up until now, the booming expectation, David talks about a lot for 2025. What are you seeing? What's your overall view on what's happening, where we're going?
Well, first, let me start by saying good riddance to 2024, right? This was a pretty tough year for a lot of us from an economical standpoint across the board. Hiring wasn't great. I mean, there are some sectors that still did fine, but overall, it was a pretty slower year than what we're used to. 2025, I think, is definitely looking positive. There are certain sectors that definitely we're seeing activity in, and certainly some of the research is trending in that direction. Renewable energy, technology, healthcare, engineering. Those are definitely sectors that I think that we're going to see a lot more activity in the coming year. I think in the U.S., for example, with the new administration come in, that tends to be probably a little bit more business favorable. And so we're also seeing some reports where clients and businesses are feeling more optimistic about their hiring. And so we're already at the end of this year, actually, we're seeing a little bit of a pickup. It's slight, but we're seeing some of that activity starting now that will translate into some of those splits early in the coming year. So definitely, I think 2025 is going to be more favorable than it was in 2024. Australia, the market there has been a little bit flat, but there's definitely some opportunities there for growth also. So, I mean, I think worldwide things are starting to make a turn. I think 2025 from a lot of perspectives and different industries as well. Think about travel industry, for example. That is the year that they said we should be completely fully recovered from COVID and from the pandemic. So I think we're starting to really come into the period where that is fully behind us. Confidence is back. Budgets are starting to come back. The economy hopefully is starting an upward trend, not in all areas for sure. But definitely there's going to be some opportunities, I think, for some growth and expansion, and that's going to certainly turn around into jobs and make that a more prosperous year for a lot of folks. So definitely looking forward to 2025.
All right, so let's talk about, and by the way, I am as well. I'm very bullish on 2025, as you guys know. But that said, what about on a more tactical level? Let's say some young recruiter has never done splits before, wants to start doing splits. Like, what would you say? Like, I guess it's over the ground level. Like, how do really splits work in essence? I think most recruiters kind of know, but just give me a brief description, in essence, how they work, and then maybe how to best approach them. Because I know a lot of recruiters, especially the younger ones or newer ones, may not really be as familiar with how it all works.
Yeah. Well, step number one is to join NPA Worldwide. That's number one. Let's get off that right off the bat, right? That's a given, because definitely that's where you want to be. Exactly. But really, it's very simple. And, I know we're talking to recruiters now, and so they get, for the most part, how that works. But with NPA, it really is about two partners coming together, one with candidates, one with the jobs, coming together and actually filling that job's position, and then sharing the revenue that is derived from the client for that. And then, of course, a small brokerage fee goes to NPA to help support the activities and the work that we do. But that's really it in a nutshell. And it's very, very similar to those who aren't familiar with it at all. Just think about real estate agents. Well, somebody has a house, somebody has a client, you come together, you sell the house, you split that fee. It's the same kind of thing. And really it does accelerate or has the opportunity to accelerate the revenue that you bring in every year. Again, you're doing half of that work. And so half of the time spent, hopefully, if you're on the job side, you're working very closely with your clients. It gives you more time to focus on the clients, focus on the needs that they have, making sure that you're really understanding the goals that they have and what they're trying to do and accomplish. And then on the candidate side, then, you're working your candidates constantly, making sure that you have the most marketable top clients that you can possibly get, and you're promoting them in a way that's putting them in the best light. So when you're working with your partners there that want to do a split with you and they have a great job and you have the great candidate, making sure that you're presenting that candidate in the best possible light, you're providing as much information and detail as you can. And I think really understanding what your partner wants to see is also important. But that's really sort of the basics around splits, how they work, and how our network works as a whole.
And people have to pay. They pay a membership fee first, right? You do a lot of vetting to make sure they're legit, and it's not, I guess, like a job board where anyone could sign up if they have a job.
No, that's correct.
And
they don't let national companies on there. They don't let like big, huge firms on there.
No franchise. That's correct. We don't allow franchises in the network, and we're typically small to mid-sized recruiting firms. So folks single working a desk, or they can even have multiple locations. That's not an issue. As long as they're not a franchise and they're still within that sort of small to mid range. That's our sweet spot.
Now, what about protection? Now, I don't mean that kind of protection, but I'm talking about like protection for, but I'm talking about, yes, my mind's always in the gutter, but what about protection for, for whether you're doing network or not, but let's just, apart from being a network, just like, okay, someone wants to do a split, they have a split partner. Like, how do you protect yourself? Because if you're sending over candidates, you want to make sure you get credit for those candidates, or B, or not be told, oh yeah, I've already talked to that guy, that old story. Or conversely, if you got the client, there's always the worry of, hey, this person's going to go out and try to get my client and get the full fee. Right. So how do you protect yourself?
Yeah, that's really where that trust and taking time to build those relationships comes into. I mean, it's a very ethical community that we work on. We strive ourselves on making sure that we are constantly working in an ethical fashion and working with integrity. There's always outliers, and we can't control everything everybody does. But from the standpoint of building those relationships and making sure that you've got somebody who can sort of, in a sense, refer and stand up for you and say, I've done business with this individual. They're straight up. I don't have any issues with them. That's huge. That really plays a big role.
You can
It's
see
also
people's track records in there too.
You
You can look
can,
at,
you absolutely.
think about partnering with someone, you can see in print all the deals that they've done, all the stuff.
Right.
You can see an audit trail on them too, just adding to what you're saying.
Exactly. That's exactly
Okay, but-
right. I mean, and you can always ask other members in the community. It's fairly small. We're talking 500, which is not, it's not huge, but even if you think that's a big number in terms of firms, there's more individuals behind that, over 1,000 individuals.
But apart from that, like but with that said, oh, looks like Kerry froze on us. Hey, Kerry, can you still hear us? Kerry?
I'm back in a minute. She's frozen on my end too.
All right. No worries. Well, all right. Well, that said, while we're on
Still, there's
Kerry,
so many that they're already connected.
oh, there we go.
Uh-oh.
There you go. Okay, we're back.
Did I
We
lose
got you.
All right. I was about to
okay.
insult Neil, but you didn't interrupt that, Kerry.
He saved him.
All right, I'll have to save for later. But all right, so but with that said, apart from being a part of of an organization, right? So obviously that provides, I guess, use a shield, and there's you can do and it also provides kind of a point of reference if they've talked to other split partners that recruiter may have had. But let's say apart from that, right? Just I'm a recruiter. There's this dude that I kind of know, maybe from a Facebook group or whatever, who wants to split with me. From that perspective, how do you protect yourself?
Well, if you're not sure, first of all, they have to be in the network. If you're wanting to do a split, they don't. I mean, you can work with anybody that you want to. So it's. I don't mean it that way, but if they're within the network, you can always contact the staff. We're happy to say, we can tell you a little bit about the history in that regard. But there are protections. Certainly, don't give all of the information out. You don't want to share the name of your client right off the bat. You want to keep that to yourself. You want to make sure that you're not giving all that information if you're on the client side. You can certainly, in our marketplace, for example, you're posting information about the job, you're posting the description, those kinds of things. On the candidate side, it can be very similar. You can send across information about a candidate you have, but you're not giving out the name of the individual necessarily, or their contact information. You want to make sure that you have a reason to make sure that you're going to connect. Like, okay, I've got a job that you like, I've got a candidate you like, let's talk, let's sort of see how this goes. And then if that works out, then you start to share that information if you think that's going to work. From an NPA worldwide standpoint, in terms of protection, I would just want to add this piece in terms of a benefit that we offer to our members, and that's indemnification. So if you do a split with a partner in the network and something goes awry, they don't pay you for the split. Something happens, they close their business, they retire suddenly, whatever that issue might be, and you don't get paid after you've done the work, NPA will indemnify you for your portion of the split. So you're not going to be at loss. We will make you whole. And that is a huge benefit for being in the network that other organizations don't offer, or that you don't.
Your money where your mouth is, literally.
No,
it is.
No,
it literally is.
Now, Chris, that means protection against or it means legal protection, Chris.
Thank you for helping with
the show. So I want to make sure he.
Well, it's a financial protection. It's a financial protection. So we're covering any loss that you might have, and there are steps that obviously you have to go through. But if you've done a split with a partner in the network and they don't pay you, and there's a certain timeline has gone, and you've gone through the steps that you have to go through, and you're not receiving payment. NPA will indemnify you for your portion of the split.
The ultimate split condom.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
I also think that because it's a self-governed group, right? It's recruiters.
Very much.
It's so I think that helps a lot with like disputes or issues in terms of things going awry between recruiters, because you've got volunteer board members, volunteer leaders that are the ones adjudicating any disagreements, deciding if people get removed because they show that they're not being ethical or whatever.
Right.
But a lot of times some of these things get worked out. They don't reach the point of having to cash in on the indemnification. Obviously, it's like a last resort. But what's nice is if there's an issue between a couple of recruiters, I'm a part of it personally, but like the board members are longtime recruiters themselves and members and active participants. It's not, nothing wrong with the staff, but I'm saying it's not the staff kind of deciding based on a rule book, you did something right or wrong.
It's peer-to-peer.
Peer-to-peer and people that were elected by the group of recruiters to do so, that basically are like, listen, we understand that these situations are highly nuanced, and I think we've all seen all kinds of crazy situations, and like it gets it gets as fairly taken care of as it can be.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think that's a big difference.
Yeah. And the other point I want to make about the network, and you sort of alluded to this, is it's actually a member-owned cooperative. So the members are truly owning the network. And so they are much more invested in terms of making sure that the network was successful, making sure that some of these disputes get worked out before they reach a higher level. And we have, and I will say too, that when the economy is down, and things are a little bit tighter, we tend to see a few more of those types of issues because people want to hold on to their money or their the issues that they're having. And so we've really had to rely on our board directors this year and our area leaders as well to step in with some of the issues that we've seen come up. But they've just done an amazing job of sorting through some of the issues that we've seen between some members and have worked them out so that everybody is happy and everybody is satisfied and they can continue to do business. So just a dedicated group of volunteers that we have, and it is a member-owned network. And so very proud of both of those things.
Somebody asked a question about, does everybody get to talk to both sides get to talk to the client or whatever? I know you brought that up on the screen earlier, David, and it depends. What's fascinating about the way that everything is structured is it's really left up to each pair of recruiters to decide how they want to run any given engagement. And that's why it's so important to talk to as many of them as you can and get to know them, because all of us went out to business on our own because we all knew how to do it best, right? So, and we all do the same thing basically, and we certainly market it similarly, but all of us have a little bit different way of approaching it. And you find some people that work the way you work, and there's some people you come across, you never work the way they work, but it works fine for them. And there's somebody else that works great with. So it depends on like who has access to a client, who whatever. Some people it's very evenly divided. Some of them, like I would say, like if I brought on a requirement that was with a partner I had some relationship with, I'd bring them on the right from the outset, like right on the call, because why not save time and why not just put them right on camera with the client? I'd still be part of the communications, but I'm like, let's cut out the middleman. I'm still going to get paid for this. It's all good. And so really, to answer Gail's question, it depends because it's left up to every member to figure out how best to engage with each other. And that's where the communication comes. There's no exact way it always has to happen. So that being able to like understand like different styles and how different people are. And David, about your question about like how just in general, even outside of NPA, how do you figure out who you should split with? I think if you can have like a pretty good level of communication with someone, really feel out how they work, how they operate, you're probably going to learn pretty quick if you feel like you can trust them and if you can work with them. So yeah.
Well, also apart from NPA, first step, get an agreement in place. Just like you would send a candidate to a client without an agreement, unless you just love playing dirty and loose and be willing to lose money. I mean, so put a contract in place between you and the other recruiter. In fact, we have a split agreement in the syndicate.chat if you want to get a free agreement. But put agreement in place before you share the client name and the cat names. That's a basic. Also, just be careful if you happen to be talking to a potential split partner and you look at their LinkedIn and it's their first year in the business or brand new, doesn't necessarily say it's a bad thing, but just be careful, right? They're not as established, and so they could run with your money potentially. So be careful about that as well. Very important. But with that said, though, Kerry, what I want to ask, though, as we start to kind of wrap the show, I want to get a little more personal. Now, it sounds kind of weird.
She's like, I think I'm losing my connection. Actually,
Scary coming from you.
Okay, all right. Recruiters. We're a weird bunch, right? We're like salty dog recruiters. You know, we come from all walks of life. You got bikers, you got little library ladies, every walk of life, right? But at the end of the day, we're all super independent. Nobody understands us, and we're kind of like an interesting lot, right? The land of misfit toys, as I like to call it. So, you coming in from outside the industry, coming into NPA, did any of the recruiters? Were you hazed? Were you know?
Not yet. I'm starting to feel that way.
Like coming in.
What was it like coming in?
Yeah.
You know, I have been, it's been really, really nice. What a welcoming group of folks, I'm going to tell you, because what you do all day long is you deal with people, right? And you have to have a certain skill set in terms of how you deal with people, how you speak to folks. how you put people at ease and make them feel comfortable. And I have seen that in spades come back to me with the folks that I've dealt with at NPA Worldwide. It's just been really wonderful. They've been very welcoming, very engaging, very forthright in their thoughts and opinions. Nobody is shy that I've come across so far, but I really appreciate that because I'm a very direct person myself, very outspoken as well, very opinionated. So I can certainly handle that and can deal with that on that level. But it's really been a great experience. It's been great. Yeah, I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I think about recruiters. Yeah, you always know where you stand. We're well, for the most part, most recruiters are fairly straight shooters. At least the older ones are. The ones that have been in the business for a long time. Kind of the recruiters that came from the era where there weren't college courses on recruiting. No one even knew what recruiters did until you happen to fall ass backwards into it, like all
Yeah.
of us here,
Like
right?
most people do, right? Yes.
As opposed to these young bucks taking college courses and recruiting 101 or whatever. But that said, yeah, it's really cool to see your transition into this business, and hopefully I didn't give any of the NPA folks ideas on hazing new presidents. So I apologize in advance.
Nothing formal yet, but I've had some,
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Well, we'll get. But these recruiters are fun. We're fun. We're not sticks in the mud. Sticks in the mud recruiters typically don't last long in this business. You have to have a certain sense of just, I don't know, willing to embrace the absurd, I suppose, is probably the best way to put it.
And probably adventure as well. If you're in business for yourself, that is an adventure, right? For sure. And so just being willing to take chances and risks. I mean, it's all part of it. And I embrace all of that. It's great.
Well, Gail Levin. Oh, by the way, Gail is a client of mine. So, hey, Gail. But Gail has a question: how to join. So, where can people go to join? And I'll make sure that Janine, our assistant, make sure puts that in the comments on the stream.
Yeah. So if you want to reach out to me, that's easier because we've got a couple different folks, depending on where you are in the world, that I would refer you to. My email is kcrockett with 2 T's at NPAworldwide.com. Certainly happy to refer you, but there is, like we talked about, a vetting process. So reach out to me. I'm happy to refer you to whomever is the appropriate individual based on where you're located in the world.
Yeah, and Gail will be a great member. She is, and not just because she's a client. Yes, I'm kind of biased, but she's awesome. So yeah, she'd be great to have on. Great to have on. Cool. All right. Well, guys, as we're wrapping up here, Neil, Chris, Kerry, got any final thoughts for the audience?
I got a plug. I got one plug. I want to make sure I put this out. So we have our global conference, our North America conference, coming up in Philadelphia, March 27th through 29th. So if you have an interest, it is the first time that we're allowing non-members to attend as well. We'd rather you be a member, obviously, but feel free. So registration just opened for that. If you have any questions, again, email me. I'm happy to send you information, but would love to see you there and get a sample of what the network is like.
Excellent.
That's going to be fun. I'll definitely be there.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
We'll see.
Well, I really appreciate you being on, Kerry. It was great. It was great to meet you. And again, if anybody can go to the conference, the one I went to, Salt Lake City, was amazing. It was out to great people, so friendly, and not too big. Because I've been to conferences that are way too big, and you don't get to really. It's not intimate enough. It's big enough where you get a broad swath of talent and perspectives and all that, but it's small enough where it's intimate, so you get to really meet some really cool people and really be able to learn a lot. So if you can go.
And this is our last show of the year, believe it or not.
It is.
Last show of 2024. And I believe we're back on the 9th, right? Not the 2nd?
That's correct. Yeah, the 9th. So we have, what's that, 3 weeks?
Holidays,
Yeah. Well, for those of you folks who are watching, whether it's a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, have a crazy Kwanzaa, whatever it is you celebrate, have a blast with your friends, family. Don't drink too much eggnog. And with that said, we'll see you all next year. Bye, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.